We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
So this is sort of a little bit as Father Friedel we're going to speak about later. So Bible legend has it that the devil is a fallen angel and that he was sent out of earth as punishment. The devil then, according to Mark Twain, wrote letters back to heaven about what he found down here on earth. And there are a few tidbits from those letters. Man is a marvelous curiosity. When he is at his very best, he is sort of low-grade, nickel-plated angel. At his worst, he is unspeakable, unimaginable, and first and last, and at all times he is sarcasm. Yet he plainly and in all sincerity calls himself the noblest work of God. This is the truth I'm telling you. And this is not a new idea with him. He has taught it through all ages and believed it. Believed it and found nobody among all his race laugh at it. Moreover, if I may put another strain upon you, he thinks he's the Creator's pet. He believes the Creator is proud of him. He even believes the Creator loves him, has passion for him, sits up nights to admire him, yes, and watch over him and keep him out of trouble. He prays to him and thinks he listens. Isn't that a great idea? The daily affront, the daily defeat do not discourage him. He goes on praying all the same. There's something fine about this perseverance. I must put one more strain upon you. He thinks he's going to heaven. He has salaried teachers who tells him this. They also tell him there's a hell of everlasting fire if he does not keep the commandments. I have not told you anything about man that is not true. For there is nothing about man that is not strange to an immortal. He looked at nothing as us gods and angels look at it. His sense of proportion is quite different from ours, and his sense of value is so widely divergent from ours that with all our large intellectual powers, it is not likely that even the most gifted among us would ever be quite able to understand man. For instance, take this sample. Man has imagined a heaven and has left entirely out of it the supremest of all his delights, the one ecstasy that stands first and foremost in the heart of every individual of his race and ours, sex. It also does not seem to discourage man that God, the Commander-in-Chief, visits on us untold unspeakable diseases and disasters from the very day we are born until we die. With these facts before you, you will now try to guess man's chiefest pet name for this ferocious Commander-in-Chief. I will save you the trouble, but you must not laugh. It is our Father in heaven. It is curious the way the human mind works. The Christian begins with this great proposition. This definitive proposition, this inflexible and uncompromising proposition. God is all-knowing and all-powerful. This being the case, nothing can happen without his permission. Nothing can happen that he chooses to prevent. That is definite enough, isn't it? It makes the Creator responsible for everything that happens, doesn't it? The Christian concedes it in that italicized sentence, concedes it with feeling, with enthusiasm. Then Having thus made the Creator responsible for all those pains and diseases and miseries above enumerated, and which he could have prevented, the gifted Christian blandly calls him our Father. We now just quiet down a little bit and meditate before a sermon. And I picked a piece out here that's written by Nancy Wood. And it goes, "It is our quiet time. We do not speak because the voices are within us. It is our quiet time. We do not walk because the earth is all within us. It is our quiet time. We do not dance because the music has lifted us to a place where the Spirit is. It is our quiet time. We rest with all of nature. We wake when the seven sisters wake. We greet them in the sky over the opening of the kingdom." So the title for today's sermon is "God and the Devil Are Good Friends," a twist on the creation story. I believe I have been thinking more in the lines of Mark Twain long before I knew about him. I thought it was really weird that God would create people, pretend to love them, and then expose them to all sort of misery when he could easily keep it away from them. Then some years ago, I got thinking that maybe there's something that prevents God from being nicer to us. I got this idea of how this maybe could have started and become what I'm suggesting. I told some friends and family in Denmark about it then, but I've otherwise not broadcast it. Do I believe this version? Well, that's a good question. But at least it makes more sense to me than what my limited knowledge of the Bible otherwise suggests. So here it is. Do you know that God and the devil are very good friends? Actually, they're total equals. Maybe even a couple, with God being the wife and the devil her testosterone-laden macho husband. You haven't heard about that? Well, you haven't, because they really don't want you to know, since it might interfere a lot with a very important bet they made between the two of them a long time ago. You know that making bets are not at all foreign to them. Remember the one they made about Job? They made all kinds of bad things happen to Job, and God bet he would believe in him no matter all the horrors he was exposed to. But the devil said that Job would give up on God pretty fast. But that bet is very insignificant compared to the one I'm going to tell you about now. But we're getting ahead of the story, so back to the beginning. God and the devil really have been friends since the beginning of time, when they got together to create the universe. Did they do it in 6 days? No, but in 6 days they created the necessary math and physics formulas and software to get the job done. Then they sat back and waited a few billion years while the galaxies, suns, and planets formed all through the universe. You know that for them time is very different than it is for you and me. So it was not a whole lot longer than a blink of an eye to them. While most of the planets in the universe turned out to be very barren and inhospitable, one of them turned out exceedingly beautiful with blue sky, blue water, tall white mountains, and in time green slopes. That one they called Earth, or sometimes they call it paradise. It was so nice and so interesting that they decided it was a good place for them to spend some of their time. And so they sat around down here for a while and admired their amazing work. But, you know, when you get used to a place, no matter how wonderful it is, you can get bored with it. And of course, that's what happened to them. So they went back and made a program to create plants and animals and fish of all kinds to make it more interesting. Why they made it so some animals eat plants and some animals eat other animals, I do not know. I know they like things interesting and they can have a bit of a mean streak. But the thing is, even if animal eats other animals, they seldom eat their own species or kill more than absolutely necessary to stay alive. And you know, that is way different from what the human species does. Humans have wars again and again, and they kill thousands or millions of their own. And also, to keep from being bored, they made Earth have earthquakes, volcanoes, meteor strikes. Some of those events eradicated large numbers of animal species and really mixed things up and created a fresh start. But you guessed it, even with all that, they got bored again. And so what to do next? God says, why don't we create a more interesting creature, one that has a little more intelligence than the animals and is a little more like us. But then it hit them. We can't give them as much intellect and wisdom as we have, or their behavior will not be very interesting at all. So they discussed what traits they would let humans have. God said, I want to give them love, goodness, and be kind and helpful to their neighbors. If I give them those things, humankind will be able to manage itself so they will still be here millions of years, right up to the next disastrous meteor strike. Devil said, no, 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 God. You are delusional and way too optimistic. For I get to add power lust, unlimited greed, selfishness, and deceit. And with that, they will screw everything up, kill themselves, and destroy Earth in just a few thousands or tens of thousands years. So this is the bet they made. How soon will humankind destroy itself and or the Earth? They of course had to make rules for the bet. And one of the rules is that they only can interfere very little with people to influence the outcome. So that is why nobody is supposed to know about this bet. So this new creation of humans got started and have gone on for a while, as you know. But they were only a few thousand years into the experiment before God thought he was losing ground. Most people were already very nasty and impossible. So he pleaded with the devil to start over again, claiming that the people they started with was already bad from the first day. Well, the devil, he was not worried. He was still sure he was going to win the bet in the end, so he said, okay, we can do that. That's how Noah and his ark came about. And they drowned all the people except Noah and his family in the flood. But I'm wondering, why did they have to kill most of the animals too? That's a mystery, since it doesn't seem anybody thought that the animals were especially mean or bad. There were other examples of devil's largesse and unworthiness about losing, like letting God interfere with language confusion at the Tower of Babel and a few other such things. But of course, after a while, God again thought things were going the wrong way. The descendants of Noah were going bad also. And he had promised that he would not try the flood thing again. He also felt he could not ask more concessions from the devils, so he decided to cheat just a little bit. He did that by sending his son Jesus down to earth, claiming that was allowed and reasonable since he really was just another human. Jesus was therefore allowed to try to influence his fellow humans. The devil saw through this, but he was still not worried, and also he did not really want the experiment and the bet to end that soon, as it looked like he was going to. He actually was enjoying the show. And you know, from what I've told you, the devil is not really quite as bad as he's been made out to be during the times. He's just, as they say, the devil's advocate. Well, Jesus had quite a bit of influence on people's behavior for a while, as he was teaching people how to behave and to love their neighbor as they loved themselves. Around that time, the devil also agreed to broaden the experiment a little bit to see what would happen if they created more and different religions. That's how some became Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and so on. Some of these religions seemed at first to work out a little better. A few of them appeared to be a little less violent than the so-called Christian one that often killed people that would not give up their religion or their land to them. But lo and behold, what mostly happened was that the people started killing each other over whose religion was the best one. So does God have a hard time? And today it looks like people got a little too much smarts and a little bit too little wisdom. They have figured out how to make nuclear weapons, and there is so many humans that all their activities invariably scars more and more of Earth and makes it unusable. Think Chernobyl and northern Japan nuclear reactor accidents that make land unusable for thousands of years. Little bits of other land is destroyed every day, and it's adding up along with the ravages of global warming. All this is bad enough, even without the possibility of an all-destroying nuclear war. The question now is, have God come to love us and the devil come to hate us over time? Or are they foremost interested in winning the bet? Well, we don't know, but the fact is God seemed to be running out of options to help us improve. So we get a chance to stay around a lot longer. To add to the problem, it feels to me that about 50 years or something ago, the devil finally got a little miffed about all the little things God had been doing to win the bet, and he decided to do an experiment of his own. Exactly how he did it is not clear to me, but there's this author, Ayn Rand, whose books I have not read, I would have to say, but that they said that selfishness is the only way to go. She claimed that the world would be a much better place for all if everybody simply think of themselves first and does not care one hoot about other people. She seems to have influenced a lot of people, including House Speaker Paul Ryan, who makes all his staff read her books. Her thoughts, of course, line up completely with the hardcore capitalist's way of thinking, how there should be no government control to help even out the ravages unregulated capitalism causes. It has gotten so bad that the far-right denomination leaders claim that the more wealth they and other people are able to accumulate, parenthesis, justly or unjustly, and with or without environmental devastation, the more it's a sign that God especially loves them. And that if you are poor, it is partly your own fault and partly that God does not like you. One must admit that the devil, to get those thoughts drilled into people's heads, including ministers' heads, in spite of Jesus' teachings, he must be pretty smart and have good helpers. Now finally, another author, Robert Wright, in his book, The Common Good, has a recipe for a just society. Wright attributes the erosion of the common good, like helping each other out in recent decades, to the breakdown of moral restraints in the pursuit of power and money. He claims that our society of late mostly honor people for their wealth and fame, but that we instead should shame those who, however wealthy, achieves their status through exploitative business practice or morally dubious financial dealings, including tax evasion and financial trickery. Sounds a lot like the devil's input in humans, doesn't it? Instead, he claims we should honor all those people who display genuine virtue, like people who perform hard or risky tasks that serves the common good. If my theory about all this is right, what it all comes down to is that we are on our own to try to prevent destruction of Earth and ourselves. So is there any hope God will win the bet so humans can stay a little longer in this paradise? That may be the only paradise there is. It looks bleak, but we all have to try to help. I'm thinking that the message I have shared here is short and very clear and should be understandable for both religious and non-religious people. So maybe we can spread it to a lot of people. Maybe it can be used to shame the destroyers into becoming a little better. The concept is very short and simple. God and the devil created the universe, the earth and humans. But they have a bet on how fast the human race will destroy itself. God says that because of human goodness, it will be millions of years. The devil says because of human greed, it'll be very soon. But it's entirely up to humans to decide who wins. God can't help us anymore without breaking the rules of the bet. And maybe we are not important enough for him to break those rules. So, what are you going to help? Who are you going to help win the bet? God or the devil? Maybe choose the right path. for the beauty of the earth, the spinning blue-green ball. Yes, Gaia, mother of everything. We walk gently across your back to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be, Gaia, our home. The lap in which we live welcomes.
To close our service, we'll extinguish the chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a welcoming congregation. We are located at 3024 Cooley Road, 4 miles west of South Main Street, Canandaigua, just north of the intersection with Routes 5 and 20. Look for the blue signs just before the turn. Your comments about this program or questions about the church are welcome at 585-396-1370 or at our website, www.canandaiguauu.org. Producer and editor, Daniel Brigham.